Have you ever watched someone humiliate another person so completely, so confidently, and then witness the exact moment they realized they had just destroyed everything they worked for? I have. And I want to tell you about Celeste Harmon. Not because the story ends with an apology. It doesn't. It ends with a phone call. One quiet, 2-minute phone call that cost a man his career, his reputation, and the most important contract his company had ever signed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Celeste Harmon was 34 years old, black, and the kind of woman who made no effort to announce herself when she walked into a room. That was intentional. She had learned early that the people who needed the loudest entrance were usually the ones with the least to back it up. Celeste stood 5'6", natural hair pulled back into a low puff, wearing dark jeans, a white linen button-down, and white New Balance sneakers. No jewelry except small gold studs in her ears, no designer bag. Just a worn canvas tote with the strap fraying slightly at the left shoulder. She looked, to anyone who didn't know better, like a graduate student running errands on a Tuesday. She was, in fact, the founder and CEO of Harmon Infrastructure Partners, a private equity firm specializing in municipal development contracts across the Southeast. At 34, she had personally overseen 11 figures in contracted public works. She sat on 2 state advisory boards. 3 months earlier, Forbes had put her on a list she asked them not to publish. They published it anyway. But none of that was visible when she walked into the lobby of the Calloway Grand that morning. The Calloway Grand was the most prestigious hotel in Marin County, a gleaming 16-floor property in the heart of downtown, with marble floors and a chandelier in the lobby that reportedly cost more than most people's homes. It had been the venue of choice for every major business event in the region for over a decade. Politicians held fundraisers there. Law firms booked entire floors for partner retreats, and Harmon Infrastructure Partners had used it exclusively for client dinners, strategy weekends, and board presentations for the past 3 years. 3 years. Roughly $180,000 in hotel revenue. Celeste had stayed in this building 41 times. She knew the route from the elevator to the executive suite without looking up from her phone. The weekend staff knew her order: sparkling water, black coffee, the seasonal fruit plate. She tipped well and asked for nothing twice. But the man behind the front desk that morning had never seen her before. His name was Preston Aldridge. He was 47, white, with the kind of rigid posture that came from genuinely believing his job title meant something. He had the build of someone who had played college football 20 years ago and hadn't fully accepted what had happened since. His name tag was polished. His hair was gelled back with the precision of someone who woke up 40 minutes before he needed to. He had been named front office manager of the Calloway Grand 8 months ago, and in those 8 months, he had developed what his subordinates privately called the look, a slow, scanning assessment he gave to guests before deciding how much attention they deserved. Celeste walked in at 8:14 a.m. on a Wednesday. She was there to check on the setup for a 2-day board strategy retreat beginning that afternoon. Harmon Infrastructure Partners had booked the entire Meridian Suite, the hotel's flagship event space, along with 6 guest rooms, catering service, and AV equipment. The contract for this stay alone was $22,400. She approached the desk. Preston Aldridge gave her the look. It lasted about 4 seconds: canvas tote, sneakers, no visible credentials. His face didn't change exactly, but something behind his eyes did. A small recalibration, a downgrade. "Can I help you?" he said. Not welcome, not good morning. Just those 3 words, in the flat register people use when they're hoping the answer is no. "I'm Celeste Harmon," she said. "I have a reservation and I wanted to check on the Meridian Suite setup." Preston's fingers moved to his keyboard. He typed something slowly, the way people type when they want to seem thorough. Then he stopped. "I don't see anything under that name." Celeste didn't blink. It might be under the company name. Harmon Infrastructure Partners. More typing. A pause that lasted slightly too long. "I see an event booking under that name, yes." He said it the way you'd confirm someone had correctly guessed a password. Grudging. But check-in for rooms isn't until 3 o'clock. I know, Celeste said. I'm not checking in yet. I'd like to walk through the Meridian suite to verify the setup. The space isn't available for walkthroughs until the event coordinator is on site. Who's the coordinator assigned to my event? Another pause. That would be Tracy. She doesn't come in until noon. Celeste nodded slowly. Okay, can you leave her a message to call me when she arrives? I'll be in the restaurant. We don't take personal messages for event staff. There was a silence. It was the kind of silence that has weight. Celeste looked at him for a moment. Not with anger, not with disbelief, with the particular stillness of someone who has been in enough rooms to know exactly what is happening and has made the private decision not to engage with it today. All right, she said. Thank you. She turned toward the restaurant. Preston watched her go with the expression of a man who had successfully handled something. She sat at a corner table and ordered coffee. She answered emails. She reviewed a contract amendment on her phone. She was, by all external appearances, fine. But she had been here before. Not in this building specifically. Everywhere. The extra pause before service. The absent greeting. The questions that were technically appropriate but functionally were just a way of saying, I'm not sure you belong here. She had been navigating it since she was 22 and walked into her first investor meeting in a conference room full of men who kept glancing at the door expecting someone else to walk in behind her. She had learned that reacting was expensive, that the people who did this to you were counting on a reaction to confirm what they already thought, to give themselves a story. The best thing she had ever done for herself was refuse to give them that story. So she sat. She drank her coffee. She waited. At 11:47 a.m., a woman appeared at the restaurant entrance, scanning the room with an apologetic energy. She was mid-30s, white, wearing a hotel blazer and a lanyard with more badges on it than seemed strictly necessary. Her name tag said Tracy, Event Stiverses. She spotted Celeste and walked over quickly. Miss Harmon? I am so sorry. I just got in and saw the note someone left on my desk. I had no idea you were waiting. I would have come in early if I'd known you were here. Celeste smiled. It's fine, Tracy. I just wanted to walk the Meridian suite before everything starts this afternoon. Tracy's face did something complicated. Yes, of course. Right now, absolutely. She paused. Can I ask, who told you I didn't come in until noon? My shift actually starts at 9. Celeste looked at her. Because, Tracy continued, lowering her voice slightly, I've been here since 9:15. If someone at the front desk told you noon, She stopped herself. I'm just going to make a note of that internally. Celeste said nothing. She stood, picked up her canvas tote, and followed Tracy to the elevator. The Meridian suite was exactly as beautiful as it always was. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a long mahogany conference table, the city laid out in the background like a PowerPoint slide about success. Tracy walked her through everything. The catering menus were confirmed. The AV was set up and tested. The guest rooms had been pre-stocked per the specifications Harmon Infrastructure Partners had submitted 3 weeks ago. Everything was correct. Celeste thanked Tracy, told her the afternoon sessions would begin at 2, and asked her to make sure the catering team knew they could take their first break at 4:30. She rode the elevator back down to the lobby. Preston Aldridge was still at the front desk. He looked up when the elevator doors opened, saw her, looked back down. She walked past him and out the revolving door without saying a word. She didn't go straight to her car. She sat on a bench outside for 11 minutes. Not upset, just sitting, doing what she always did after an interaction like that, which was nothing, letting the air hit her face, letting the feeling pass through without giving it anywhere to live. Then she made a call, not to the hotel manager, not to anyone at the Calloway Grand. She called her assistant, a methodical 26-year-old named Raphael, and asked him to pull up the details of the hospitality partnership renewal that was currently in discussion. Because here's the thing, the Calloway Grand was not just Celeste's preferred hotel for events. The Calloway Grand was 17 months into a redevelopment financing agreement, a public-private infrastructure deal for the expansion of their convention center that was being managed through a consulting arrangement with Harmon Infrastructure Partners. Celeste's firm had been instrumental in structuring the financing, connecting the hotel group with city development funds, and navigating the permitting process. The total development value of the project was $340 million. Harmon Infrastructure Partners' consulting contract, up for annual renewal in 6 weeks, was valued at just under $4.2 million. Celeste had not thought about this contract when she walked in that morning. She genuinely hadn't. She had just wanted coffee and a walkthrough of a room. She thought about it now. She asked Raphael to flag the renewal file and hold all outgoing communications on it until further notice. Then she went back inside for her board retreat. The next 36 hours were, professionally, excellent. The retreat went exactly as planned. Her board members were sharp, the sessions were productive, and by Thursday evening they had resolved a strategic disagreement that had been simmering for 4 months. Tracy and her team were exceptional. The catering was flawless. 3 of Celeste's board members commented on how well run the event was. At no point during those 36 hours did Preston Aldridge acknowledge her. She checked out Thursday afternoon, signed the invoice, tipped the service staff individually. She was getting into her car when her phone buzzed. It was a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Hi, Miss Harmon. This is Carl Whitmore, General Manager of the Calloway Grand. I hope your event went well. I'd love to connect this week if you have time." She had spoken with Carl Whitmore twice before, in professional contexts. He was cordial, competent, and good at his job. She sent back a reply. "Thursday worked well, thank you. My office will be in touch." She handed her phone to Raphael for the drive back. Celeste did not file a complaint. She did not write a scathing review. She did not post anything. She did not call Carl Whitmore to explain what had happened. She understood that if she walked into that hotel and described what Preston Aldridge had done, she would spend the entire conversation managing his shock and discomfort. And at the end of it, she would be offered a gift card and a comp night. And Preston Aldridge would be quietly moved to a different shift, and nothing would actually change. What she did instead was much simpler. She asked her team to begin a formal evaluation of all existing vendor and partner relationships as part of the firm's quarterly review. Standard practice, not unusual. As part of that review, they would assess whether the consulting arrangement with the Calloway Grand's parent development group was performing to expectation, and whether renewal was in Harmon Infrastructure Partners' strategic interest. It was, in the language of her firm, a standard review initiation. In practice, it meant she was looking at whether she wanted to renew the $4.2 million contract. 3 weeks later, Carl Whitmore called her office directly. He had, by then, become aware that the renewal evaluation was underway. He had become aware of this because Harmon Infrastructure Partners' legal team had sent over a formal notice requesting documentation as part of the evaluation. Standard, professional, and impossible to misread. Carl Whitmore was not a stupid man. He had managed this property for 11 years. He had navigated city officials, corporate clients, union negotiations, and a full renovation during a pandemic. He knew what a standard review initiation meant when it came from a firm the size of Harmon Infrastructure Partners. He called on a Friday morning. Celeste's assistant put him through. "Miss Harmon," Carl said. His voice had the careful evenness of a man who had spent the last several days in conversations he didn't want to have. "I appreciate you taking my call. I'll be direct. I understand there's a review underway regarding our consulting arrangement, and I want to make sure we have the opportunity to address any concerns before a decision is made." "I appreciate that, Carl," Celeste said. She was at her desk, reviewing a separate file. She did not stop reviewing it. "We do a full vendor review every quarter. It's routine, of course." A pause. "I also want to say, and I mean this sincerely, that I was made aware of your experience during your recent visit, the interaction at the front desk." Another pause. I want you to know that is not how we do business, and it's not how we treat our clients, especially clients of your standing. Celeste set down her pen. Especially clients of your standing. She let the sentence sit in the air for a moment. Carl, she said, I'd ask you to think carefully about that phrase. A silence. It shouldn't matter what my standing is, she said. Her voice was even. Not cold, not sharp, just clear. The standard of treatment shouldn't be different based on what you think someone is worth. That's the part your team needs to understand. Carl Whitmore said nothing for a moment. Then, you're right, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I know, she said. I'll have my team be in touch about the review. She ended the call. The formal evaluation took 4 weeks. Celeste's team was thorough. They looked at deliverables, timelines, the full history of the development project, the value the consulting arrangement had provided to both parties, and the projections for the next contract year. At the end of it, Celeste made her decision. She did not renew the contract. The official letter from Harmon Infrastructure Partners cited a strategic reallocation of consulting priorities and a shift in the firm's regional focus. It was professional, accurate, and said nothing about a Wednesday morning and a man who looked at her like she didn't belong in his lobby. It didn't have to. The total value of the consulting arrangement that the Calloway Grand's parent group lost was $4.2 million annually in a development partnership that had been projected to extend for at least 7 years. In the subsequent reporting that their finance team had to do for their parent company, the hole in the development project's consulting structure cost them an additional $2.1 million to backfill with a replacement firm. The convention center expansion was delayed by 6 months. Preston Aldridge, from what Celeste later heard through professional channels, was transferred to a different property within 90 days. She heard this the way you hear about weather in a city you used to live in. Noted. Irrelevant. She told this story exactly once to her younger sister Maren over the phone about 6 months later. Maren was 29. A public defender in Atlanta, and had the practiced outrage of someone who spent every day watching systems fail people. When Celeste finished, Maren was quiet for a moment. So you walked out, sat on a bench, and ended a $4 million contract, Maren said, without ever raising your voice. I didn't end it to make a point, Celeste said. I ended it because if someone at that organization thinks that's acceptable, I don't know what else they think is acceptable. And I'm not interested in finding out with my client events and my board's time and my firm's money. That's the same thing, Maren said. Celeste thought about it. Maybe. Did it feel good? Celeste was quiet for a moment. It felt correct, she said finally, which is better. I want to say something before we close, because I think this story is about more than a contract. It's about the quiet tax that gets levied on certain people, in certain lobbies, at certain front desks every single day. It's about the calculations people make, about who deserves their attention and their courtesy, and how often those calculations have nothing to do with merit and everything to do with what they can see on the surface. Preston Aldridge didn't see a CEO. He saw a woman in sneakers with a fraying tote bag and decided she wasn't worth the warmth a first-class guest experience requires. He made an assumption, and the assumption cost his organization millions. But here's what I keep coming back to. Celeste didn't need the money to matter. She mattered before the contract. She mattered before Forbes. She mattered when she was 22 in that conference room, full of men waiting for someone else to walk in. Dignity doesn't start at a certain net worth. It's not unlocked when you hit a milestone. And any organization, any person, that extends it conditionally based on what someone looks like or what they appear to have. They're not just being unkind, they're being bad at their job. The quiet people watching you make that mistake are always more informed than you think. If this story made you feel something, drop it in the comments. I read them. And if you know someone who's been underestimated, quietly handling it with more grace than the situation deserved, share this with them. They'll know why. Subscribe to Dale Stories, new story every week. I'll see you in the next one.